to be a really cool conversation. And, look forward to hearing about what sort of requirements and best practices you see with SAP enterprises. I don't know if you have thoughts on the thesis I proposed in terms of artificial intelligence.
Yes, I think from a data structure perspective, because SAP has been around for quite some time, it's very, very stable, very, very reliable. From a data perspective, the number one concern would be data security. So when you give access to AI or LLM, large language model, access to your database, do you really want the bot to actually look at the person's name, text, phone numbers, date of birth? So what we normally suggest to our clients is we would make a replica, i.e. we will copy the database. In the sense we'll use change data capture, specifically click replicate. To replicate from SAP with the ECC6, where it's a Microsoft SQL database or Sybase or whatever they're using, Oracle database, to a target. And the target can be Snowflake, Databricks, you name it, or S4HANA for that matter from the source. And as part of the replication process, we do a couple of things. Number one, you mask information, you should. And how many years of information do you need? If you have been operating as a business for 20 years, do you need the board to look at 20 years worth of data? So that you filter it down to maybe 3 years or 5 or whatever is relevant to the business. And how many columns do you need? Because we do know from a cloud computing perspective, they charge by resources, storage, and network traffic, right? So if you SAP table, some of them got 300 fields. So if we say we're only using 30, why don't we just replicate the 30 fields in 3 years worth? So from that perspective, you're limiting your cloud computing cost. You're limiting the exposure of data because the bot doesn't need to know that you're John or Bob, or you're born in 1945. All it needs to know is, how many employees do we have, the headcounts, who's going on leave. You can always trace back because the ID is still the same. Unless you anonymize it, you can still trace it back to what the original data is. So, and other than that, performance. The last thing you want is sometimes the bots, you can train it to write SQL queries. It will create a database for you, but you're now over-relying. How sure are you if the bot's going to write a bad query? I've worked in SAP environments before where someone wrote a bad SQL query, increased the report, and it took the entire SAP system down. That's the last thing you want to happen, and it takes down the entire production system like SAP. So those are the things that I believe SAP customers need to be aware of.